In the last chapter, we saw Cyril the Rose on a mission to rescue the princess. After pulling off the whole hero thing, he's rewarded with 1,000 Ries, which was totally unexpected. But hey, who's turning down that kind of cash? Certainly not Cyril. Louise, of course, is over the moon about it and immediately starts bugging Cyril to buy her new straw bedding. But Cyril? Nah, he's thinking bigger. With that much dough, you can afford way more than just straw. Louise is thrilled, and off they go, hunting down the perfect bedding. After wandering through a bunch of shops, they finally stumble into one that looks promising, but just as they walk in, someone calls Cyril's name. He turns around and, surprise, it's Louis from the Night Dragon Guild, the same guild Cyril used to be a part of. Louis is shocked to see Cyril because when he got back from his mission, Cyril had already bailed. Cyril is just as surprised by the whole situation, but Louis, not happy. He's like, dude, I can talk to the guild and get you back in. Cyril's pretty floored that Louis would go out of his way for him, but he politely declines. No way is he leaving his dragon obsession behind. Louis tries again, telling Cyril that if he just drops the whole dragon fixation, there's no reason he couldn't be a star of the guild again. He's got the skills. But Cyril stands his ground and refuses to budge, saying he made a pledge, and he is sticking to it. Savage, right? Even Louis thinks so and pleads with Cyril not to be so stubborn, pointing out that times are tough and a lone knight can't do much. But Cyril, being Cyril, says he'll keep pushing forward solo. Louis just left standing there, totally speechless. At this point, Louise, who's clearly done with this whole back and forth, jumps in and reminds Cyril that he's here to get her a bed. Cyril, looking for a way out of the convo, teases Louis, saying that Louis wants him to make his dragon sleep only 12 hours. Louise, not amused. She gets all fired up, and Louis shocked by her reaction, begging Cyril to calm her down. But Cyril's like, sorry man, I didn't order this, she's acting on her own. Louis, of course, accuses Cyril of using magic, and Cyril doesn't even deny it, saying the magic he uses is caring. Louis is not impressed and storms off mockingly. After he's gone, Louise asks Cyril what that was all about. Cyril just shrugs and tells her not to worry. Louis not important. And as for her sleeping schedule, don't stress, she's still got her 12 hours a day. Relieved, they finally make their way into the shop where a cheerful salesgirl greets them, ready to help them find the perfect bed. Cyril tells the saleswoman he's looking for bedding, and what she shows them instantly makes Louise beyond happy. She's so excited, she literally jumps onto one of the beds. Then she realizes what she's done and gets super embarrassed. But the saleswoman just laughs it off, saying it's no big deal. Those beds are samples for customers to try out. Cyril lets out a huge sigh of relief. Turns out, Louise has her eyes on a slime bed. Yep, you heard that right. A bed with the elasticity of a slime that molds to your body as you sink into it. The saleswoman mentions it's available for humans too, and Louise is totally sold. Cyril, well, he's got no choice now but to buy it. He asks her for the price, and bam, 1,200 reals. Yeah, you read that right. Louise immediately senses Cyril's hesitation, 'cause, duh, it's pricey. But Cyril, ever the gentleman, says, if you like it, that's all that matters. So, like a true boss, he buys the bed, making Louise one happy dragon. The saleswoman can't help but gush over how well they get along, saying she's never seen a dragon and knight communicate so smoothly. But hey, that's what happens when you treat your dragon like family. After making the purchase, Cyril's happy Louise found something she really wanted. But as they step out of the shop, Louise suddenly stops. She's got second thoughts, asking if it's really okay to drop 1,200 reals, especially when they were only paid 1,000. She's feeling a bit guilty, thinking she's being selfish. But Cyril quickly reassures her, telling her he's just keeping his promise, and besides, she's helped him so much since she arrived, it's only fair he rewards her. That makes Louise beam with happiness, knowing she is appreciated. Fast forward a few days, Cyril and Louise are returning from a long day at work. Cyril thinks the day went pretty well, but when he checks on Louise, she's already half asleep. Work took way longer than expected. Cyril still has to report to town hall, but there's no way he's overworking Louise anymore, so, like a good boss, he tells her to head back home on her own. But as soon as she leaves, he starts worrying if the town's safe enough for his sleepy dragon to make it back. He's rethinking his decisions like, should I really have let her go alone? Then he calms himself down thinking, come on, it's me, she'll be fine. Cut to another scene, a carriage stops, and inside, a new dragon. Looks like Cyril's about to have a very important addition to his life. Cyril, thinking about getting a new dragon, heads back to the shop where he originally bought Louise. As soon as he walks in, the salesman instantly recognizes him, probably because Cyril had the odd request last time. Cyril thanks him for the help, but the salesman is more interested in Louise's well-being. He's clearly worried Cyril might be returning her. Cyril quickly clears up the confusion, saying, No, I'm not here to return her. Instead, he's looking to add another dragon to his crew. The problem? He's just dropped a ton of cash on Louise's slime bed, so he's not exactly rolling in money. The salesman understands, but gently declines Cyril's request, explaining that he doesn't have any dragon at the same price as Louise. Cyril gets it. He did come here on a whim after all, so he asks the salesman to keep him in the loop if something similar comes up. As Cyril heads out, though, he accidentally drops his handkerchief. The salesman calls after him, but then something catches his eye. It's no ordinary handkerchief, it's the princess's. Realizing the salesman has recognized it, Cyril explains he got it as a reward for saving the princess. This impresses the salesman big time, and he suddenly offers Cyril the option of buying a dragon in installments. Cyril's surprised, but he's not dumb. He knows the salesman wants to stay on his good side, which explains the special treatment. Grateful, Cyril thanks him for the offer. Now, the salesman gets curious and asks Cyril if he has a favourite dragon type or breed in mind. Without missing a beat, Cyril asks if he has any mushkashushu dragons. These little guys are a dwarf species with 4 stomachs, 3 of which are just storage rooms. With no digestion happening there, their bodies can inflate like a balloon, expanding several times their original size. The salesman, intrigued, shows Cyril one of the mushkashushu dragons. Cyril is immediately drawn to her and greets the dragon to get acquainted, but the dragon? Oh, she's sassy. She mocks him for even trying to talk to her. Cyril, curious, asks why she's so against humans. The dragon, without thinking, blurts out that humans can't understand dragons anyway. Then she realizes Cyril actually is talking to her. She is shocked and asks if he can really understand her. Cyril, being chill as always, says, yeah, no big deal. I've always been like this. Now, Cyril's wondering if she'd be open to coming with him. The dragon's not exactly thrilled, and she gives him attitude, saying he'll do whatever he wants because he's a human, and humans disgust animals. But Cyril surprises her, saying he's not interested in forcing her. He wants to convince her with his words, and if she's not into it, he will back off. He really does want to buy her, though. The dragon's taken aback and asks him why. Cyril answers, because you're cute and beautiful. Flattery much, but it totally worked. The dragon's surprised by his words and kind of agrees. But on one condition, he can't give her a new name. She's already been named Colette back when she was still in her egg. Cyril, liking the name, is completely fine with that. With no more objections, Colette has no choice but to go with him. Cyril, respecting her decision, tells her he's counting on her, sealing the deal with his new dragon partner. After buying Colette, Cyril takes her to the place where she'll be working, a mountainous area that leaves Colette a bit surprised. Cyril points to a stunning blue ore and asks her to pick it up. The natural Cabaniuk ores are found on the surface of Mount Millreef, and Cyril wants Colette to gather and store them in her stomach to transport them to town. These valuable stones sell for a high price. So, Cyril explains the plan to her, asking if she's up for the task. Colette, being the capable dragon she is, agrees. It's no big deal for her. Cyril thanks her and casually adds that she'll be doing this all on her own. Colette is a bit confused, asks if he really means she'll be doing this solo. Cyril confirms, saying not only will she be gathering the ores, but she'll also be transporting them to the buyers in town all by herself. He assures her, though, that he wouldn't ask her if he didn't believe she could handle it, playing his classic trusting boss card. And it works like a charm. Colette, feeling trusted and empowered, agrees to the plan. She completes the task without any help from Cyril, just as planned. Later, Cyril brings her home and shows her to the garden, where she'll be staying. Colette likes the space, but spots Louise lounging around. Curious, she asks Cyril if he already has another dragon. Cyril introduces the two, and Louise, who was woken up by the commotion, groggily greets her new companion. Both dragons hit it off, and while they're fine with sharing the garden, they realise it's going to get a bit cramped if Cyril keeps bringing home dragons. Colette, intrigued by Louise, asks if she sleeps all day, to which Louise replies, "Still sleepy." Half asleep. Colette, baffled, asks Cyril if he knew about this lazy habit when he bought her, and she's even more surprised when he nods yes. The three of them get along well, but suddenly Colette stops in her tracks, spotting something. Cyril asks what's wrong, but Colette brushes him off, saying she's heading to work. Both Cyril and Louise sense she must have seen something interesting. It's not long before Louise discovered that Colette has her eye on some cupcakes from a nearby shop. Later, Cyril stops by the dragon shop again to check in on Colette. The impressed salesman from before tells him that Colette has already swung by and submitted her first earnings as the initial installment for her purchase. The salesman is amazed that Cyril managed to teach a dragon such a complicated task in just one day, calling him a truly talented dragon knight and a person of great character. Cyril, both flattered and confused by the compliment, reassures the salesman that the real credit goes to him for allowing the installment plan in the first place. The salesman blushes at the praise, but quickly gets concerned about Cyril's living situation. Now that he has two dragons, his place must be getting cramped. The problem in this town, he explains, is that dragon-friendly homes come in extremes. You either barely fit two dragons, or you can house a dozen. Sensing Cyril's predicament, the salesman offers to help him find a new house. Cyril gets interested in the mysterious house with a spacious dragon stable, even though all the dragon knights who tried to move in left because the dragons refused to enter. Undeterred, Cyril takes both Louise and Colette to check it out, telling them that since no one's willing to buy or rent the place, they might be able to get it for a cheap price. If his dragons are okay with it, of course. The dragons explore the stable and initially like the space, but after some thought, they refuse to stay. Their reasoning? The smell. Curious, Cyril asks them to describe the smell since he can't detect anything. They explain that it's the scent left behind after a dragon was killed there, and something about it still lingers in the dirt. Turns out the property is stigmatized, which is why no dragon wants to stay. But Cyril's got a plan. If the problem is the dirt, then they just need to replace it. He asks Colette to help him gather fresh earth, and together they spend an entire day swapping out the dirt. Afterward, the dragons are much happier, finding the stable comfortable and free of that eerie scent. With the problem solved, Cyril decides to move in and thanks his dragons, especially Colette, for their hard work. As a reward, he gives Colette a huge cake loaded with desserts, since he'd noticed her eyeing the sweets the other day. Colette is overjoyed, and Cyril, in his typical self-deprecating style, jokes that it's the sweets making her happy, not him. In the next scene, Cyril heads to the town hall where he runs into Rose again. She congratulates him on successfully completing his latest mission and seems impressed that he's already got 2 dragons in such a short amount of time. She also notices how efficiently he's been handling requests. Rose asks if he plans to continue as an independent knight, and Cyril confirms that he has no desire to join any guilds, mainly because they treat dragons like toys. Rose, not wanting to offend him, clarifies that she wasn't prying into his personal choices. What she was hinting at, though, was whether Cyril had ever considered starting his own guild. Cyril's eyes widen at Rose's suggestion. Could he really be on the path to becoming a guild leader? A guild, as Rose explains, is a type of association officially recognised by the country. It's essentially a Dragon Knight organisation, and with that recognition comes a ton of benefits, including lower taxes for knights. Cyril, however, doesn't even realise he should be paying taxes. But after his initial shock, he's intrigued and wants to learn more. Rose shares what she knows, explaining that to start a guild, he'd need a public servant as a witness, which she's happy to do, and a whopping 10,000 rils for the deposit. Naturally, Cyril looks a bit troubled. 10,000 rils is a lot of money. But then, Cyril casually opens his bag and out pours a fortune in coins, more than enough to cover the cost. Turns out, Colette had recently found a rare ore at their workplace, which Cyril took to a merchant. The merchant, fascinated by the ore's colour-changing properties, had immediately offered him the 10,000 rils. With the funds ready, Cyril eagerly begins filing out the paperwork. He includes all the necessary details like his name, his dragon's names, and, of course, the guild's name. Without hesitation, he hands the completed form to Rose, who's stunned by how quickly he decided on everything. Once the paperwork is processed, a tiny, adorable fairy suddenly appears from the contract. It's the Guild Fairy, which acts as the official identification of the guild. Cyril's a bit baffled by what to do with this little creature, but Rose reassures him that the fairy will follow him automatically. She then hands over a box of collars and leg bands, which are used to measure dragon energy and track the guild's progress as its level increases. But Cyril isn't thrilled with the idea of putting collars on his dragons. To him, they're more like his children, and collars feel a bit too restrictive. Sensing his discomfort, Rose suggests visiting the dragon shop for more options. When Cyril discusses this with his dragons, Louise surprises him by requesting a sleeping bag. Dragons don't usually sleep in bags after all. She then throws in a request for an eye mask. Cyril agrees to custom order the mask, even though she'll have to wear it all the time, and Louise is more than happy with that arrangement. When he asks Colette what she'd like, her request is much cuter. She simply wants a pretty ribbon. The next day, Cyril places an order for 2 custom eye masks just in case they need a spare. For now, his dragons wear the standard collars, which they don't seem to mind, though Cyril still feels uneasy about it. But his dragons are content, and that's what matters. Suddenly, something unexpected happens. Cyril's guild card starts to glow. When he checks it, it reads Level 2. Is this some kind of magic? Or is he and his dragons being monitored continuously? Well, that's a story for another time. Stay tuned to find out what happens next, and that wraps up today's tale. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to ring the bell so you don't miss out on more content like this. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.